Good morning. Today we're going to cover 6 chapters of Joshua, 16 through 21, combining today and tomorrow's readings. Tomorrow is Palm Sunday, Sunday of the Passion. We have worship at 9 o'clock in Sutton. It'll be live on Facebook, and 10:30 in McHenry. And then on Monday we will finish the book of Joshua, and then Tuesday we'll get into Judges. But in these 6 chapters that we're going to look at today, the majority of it deals with allocation of lands to the different tribes of Israel. And we started that yesterday with 13, 14, and 15, and it continues on. And as I was reading it, I thought, well, man, they're getting a lot of it done. And then you get into chapter 18, and well, there was still 7 tribes that haven't gotten land yet. But it goes into detail, like chapter 16, verse 4. The Josephites, Manasseh and Ephraim, received their inheritance, the territory of and so it spells it out, kind of makes the boundaries of it, talks about the towns that are within the area. Chapter 17, the allotment was made to the tribe of Manasseh, for he was the firstborn of Joseph. And there was a half tribe of Manasseh as well that, had received some land. And it goes through, and it names a lot of names of the descendants of the 12 tribes of Israel. I mean, those men are all long gone, those original sons that way. Aaron and all were, so many, none of those who had escaped or left Egypt were alive, and the original, it had been 400 years they were in Egypt. So, it was all descendants and many descendants of each of those 12 original sons of Israel that way. And so the territories are divided out and described by, many of the descendants, many of the sons of this son. And to try to get it all into my head is just, not going to happen at all. But there was, in verse 14 of chapter 17, the tribe of Joseph spoke to Joshua saying, "Why have you given us one lot? That's just not enough for all of the people that we are." And Joshua says, "Well, if you're numerous, go to the forest, clear the ground for yourselves, and take in the land of the Perizzites and the Rephaim, since the hill country of Ephraim is, too narrow." And the tribe of Joseph says, "The hill country is not enough, yet all the Canaanites live in the plain." But Joshua says to him again, "You are indeed a numerous people. You have great power. You shall not have only one lot, for it is a forest, but you will clear it and possess it. And you will drive out the Canaanites, even though they have chariots of iron." So Joshua is telling him, you have the power, you have the might, you have God on your side. And even though these Canaanites are mighty and they have chariots of iron, you are stronger. And in chapter 18, as it begins, the whole congregation of Israelites assembled at Shiloh, and they set up the tent of the meeting there, the tabernacle. And, this was, as they had been moving around through the wilderness, this was set up many times in many places. And now it's set up in Shiloh for a meeting. And it says the land lay subdued before them. So they had captured much of the land and taken possession of it, but there was still a lot of land that hadn't been taken possession of. And as I said, there were still 7 tribes that hadn't received their allocation. And, so only 4 had, because the tribe of the Levites isn't getting a land. So it's 11 that are getting lands allocated to them. And so Joshua says to them, "How long will you be slack about going in and taking possession of your land?" What are you going to do? Just sit here on your butts and not do anything? But go take possession of the land and live in it and possess it and raise your crops and live on it, make it your own. And so they come back and they divide this remaining land into 7 parcels. And they're going to, draw lots for the different parcels that way. And, and that's, Joshua sends these men out, 3 men from each tribe, as we read it, to go out and to kind of make a survey and to determine, boundaries of the lands and to get it all laid out. And when they come back, they cast lots. And it's a reminder, verse 7, the Levites have no portion among you, for the priesthood belongs to the Lord. So they went on their way, it says, to get this description of the land, and they went out, and it says they set down in a book a description of the towns in the 7 divisions, and they came back to Joshua in the camp at Shiloh. So remember, as they drove the people out, they didn't destroy the towns. So these towns are there. The buildings are intact and ready to be inhabited by the Israelites. And so they begin to draw the lot. And the lot of the tribe of Benjamin, according to his families, came up, and this was their boundaries. On the north side began at the Jordan, and it describes the boundaries of the land according to what these men had gone out and surveyed and put the towns together. It would be like kind of drawing out county lines for us, in today's. But so the Benjamin, got the first lot. The second lot came out for Simeon, for the tribe of Simeon. And this is going back then with these names to those original sons of Israel. And the third lot goes to Zebulun, and they name the names of the towns in the fourth lot. And the 7th lot finally goes to the tribe of Dan, and according to the families. And so then verse 51 of chapter 19, these are the inheritances that the priest Eleazar and Joshua, the son of Nun, and the heads of the families of Israel, the tribes of Israelites, distributed by lot at Shiloh at the entrance of the tent meeting. So they finished dividing the land. And then it was up to the tribes to go and to take possession and to live in the lands. And then after the lands are all divvied out and allocated that way, it says, the Lord said to Joshua, now establish the sanctuary cities. And remember that this is what Moses, that I had commanded you through Moses to have sanctuary cities. So God says, to allocate these cities. And so then they name the cities that are there. And as I was read, like verse 7, they set apart Kadesh in Galilee in the hill country of Naphtali. And Galilee and Naphtali, those are words that we hear referring to the birth of Jesus, Bethlehem of Galilee, and Naphtali. And so it's, these lands are, they have historical emphasis and historical bearings on everything that goes on for these Israelites. In chapter 21, the last one we're going to look at today, the heads of the families of the Levites come now to Joshua. And they first come to, it says to the prophet, to the priest Eleazar, and to Joshua, the son of Nun. Because Eleazar is the high priest, the chief priest, and he's there, and we had read about that Eleazar and Joshua were together in the allocating of the lands and that. So, Joshua is the leader and Eleazar is the high priest, as I said, and they are respected and looked up to, and the people come to them for direction. And as the Levites come, and so that, I first read, the Lord commanded we be given towns, okay? And then verse 4, the lot came out for the families of the Kohathites. So these Levites received 13 towns from the tribes of Judah, Simeon, and Benjamin. So this group of descendants of Levi lived in the areas, in the 3 towns, the 3 districts, let's say, that were allocated to Judah, Simeon, and Benjamin. and then the rest of the Kohathites got 10 towns in another, and 13 towns, and all told, the Levites get 48 towns, I think it is, and the land around them for their sheep, for their livestock. And so the Levites aren't left out in the allocation of lands, even though they don't have one specific area. They have cities within each of the designated 11 allotted areas of land for the Israelites. And chapter 22 ends with that the Lord gave Israel all the land that he swore to them. In the last verse, not one other enemy, or not one of all of the good promises that the Lord had made to Israel had failed. All had come to pass. So just another reminder for us that God was faithful to his promise of the promised land, of a land for Israel to live in and inhabit on its own, for its own land that way. And it's just, God is faithful always. And that's such a reassuring thing to know in my head and in my heart, in my mind, that God is always faithful.